Imagine walking through high school, heart pounding, knowing every laugh is aimed at you. That was my life. I was the weird scholarship kid, mocked, humiliated, and invisible. Until I turned it all around. 10 years later, I stood in front of my bullies, holding their futures in my hands. Want to know how I got the ultimate revenge without saying a word? Stick around. This story will leave you speechless. Pause. Screen fades to black. Title card appears with dramatic sound effect. Hey everyone, I'm Lily Carter, 26, living in Seattle, and I'm the founder of a tech company that's making waves. But rewind 10 years, and I was just a kid from a small town, trying to survive the cruelty of high school. Today, I'm sharing a story that's deeply personal, a tale of pain, perseverance, and the kind of justice that feels so satisfying. If you've ever been underestimated, betrayed, or made to feel like you didn't belong, this one's for you. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and let's dive into a real-life story that might just hit home. Ready? Here we go. I grew up in a sleepy town called Westfield, where everyone knew your business and judged you for it. My mom worked double shifts at a greasy diner, her hands always smelling like coffee and fryer oil. My dad, he left when I was 10, promising to call, but never did. We lived in a cramped apartment with peeling wallpaper, and I wore hand-me-downs from thrift stores, jeans that were always too long, sweaters that itched. At 16, I won a scholarship to Westfield High, the kind of school where kids drove BMWs and wore watches that cost more than our rent. I thought it was my ticket out of poverty, my chance to prove I was more than my circumstances. But from the first day, I realized I was wrong. I walked into that school with a duct-taped backpack and glasses that slid down my nose. Kids stared, not the curious kind of stare, the kind that makes your stomach twist. By lunch, I'd learned my place. I'd sit behind the library, hidden by a row of overgrown bushes, eating a peanut butter sandwich, while pretending I didn't hear the whispers. Look at her shoes. Are those from the dollar store? Why is she even here? She's like, poor. My cheeks burned every time. I'd clutch my sandwich so tight the bread would crumble, and I'd tell myself, just get through today, Lily. Just one more day. But it wasn't just the whispers that cut deep. It was Emily Richards and Megan Green, the untouchable queens of Westfield High. Emily was the golden girl, blonde hair that always looked freshly curled, a smile that could charm teachers but hide a venomous streak. Megan was her loyal sidekick, less polished but just as cruel, with a laugh that sounded like a hyena's cackle. They ruled the hallways like royalty, and for reasons I'll never fully understand, they decided I was their favorite target. Pause for emotional weight. I still remember the first time Emily singled me out. It was sophomore year in the cafeteria. I was reading a battered copy of The Hobbit, trying to disappear into Middle-earth. Emily walked by, her heels clicking like a predator stalking prey. She leaned over my table, her perfume sharp and expensive, and said, "Wow, Lily, do you live in a library? No wonder you're such a loser." The table nearby erupted in laughter. My face felt like it was on fire. I wanted to snap back, to say something clever, but my throat closed up. All I could do was shove my book into my bag and walk away, their giggles chasing me down the hall. It didn't stop there. Emily and Megan made tormenting me their personal sport. They'd whisper behind me in class, loud enough for me to hear, "Scholarship kid doesn't belong here." They'd post photos of me on social media, snaps of my thrift store jacket or my chipped lunch tray, with captions like, "Who let this in?" One day, I found a note taped to my locker. It was written in glittery pink pen, Emily's signature style. "Go back to the trailer park, charity case." My hands shook as I ripped it down, my heart hammering so loud I thought everyone could hear it. I looked up and there they were, Emily and Megan leaning against the lockers, smirking like they'd won a prize. The worst moment came junior year. I was in the cafeteria, working on my math homework during lunch. It was a big assignment worth 20% of my grade, and I'd spent hours on it. Emily sauntered over, holding a strawberry milkshake, her lips curled in that smug way that made my skin crawl. She tripped, and the milkshake splattered across my notebook. Pink sludge dripped onto the table, soaking the pages, blurring my careful handwriting. "Oops," she said, her voice dripping with fake innocence. "My bad, Lily." Megan snorted, doubling over with laughter. The entire cafeteria turned to stare, their eyes like needles in my skin. I wanted to scream, to throw the ruined notebook at her, but all I could do was grab my bag and run to the bathroom. I locked myself in a stall, my breath hitching, hot tears burning my eyes. I could still hear Megan's cackle echoing in my head. I tried telling a teacher once. Mrs. Larson, who treated Emily like she was the second coming, just sighed. "Lily, I'm sure it was an accident. Girls like Emily don't do things like that on purpose." That's when it hit me. No one was going to help. Not the teachers, who saw me as a pity case. Not the principal, who only cared about the rich parents' donations. Not even my mom, who was too exhausted to notice the way I'd stopped smiling. I was alone, and every day felt like a performance where I was the punchline. Short pause, music softens. Lying in bed at night, I'd replay their words, their laughs, their smug faces. My fists would clench under the blankets, my nails digging into my palms. I felt powerless, like I was drowning in their cruelty. But deep inside, there was this tiny spark, a voice whispering, "You're not nothing, Lily. One day, you'll show them." Senior year, something shifted. I was done being their victim. I started spending every free moment in the school's computer lab teaching myself to code from free online tutorials. The glow of the monitor felt like a safe haven, a place where I wasn't judged for my clothes or my background. I'd code until my eyes burned, building clunky little apps and websites, each one a step toward a future where I wasn't invisible. I graduated with straight A's, but at the ceremony, no one clapped for me. Emily and Megan were too busy posing for photos in their designer dresses planning their college parties. I left Westfield High without a backward glance, moving to Seattle with a partial scholarship to a community college, a beat-up laptop, and a fire in my chest. College wasn't easy. I worked nights at a coffee shop, my hands stained with espresso, to pay for textbooks, but I kept coding, taking freelance gigs on the side. 50 to build a website for a local bakery, 100 for a small business's inventory system. Each job felt like a brick in the foundation of my new life. By 22, I landed my first big contract, $10,000 to build software for a startup. I poured my heart into it, working until dawn, my fingers flying over the keyboard. That startup got funding, and my name started circulating in Seattle's tech scene. By 26, I'd founded Carter Tech, a company that built software to help small businesses compete with the giants. I had a team of 15 investors begging to meet me, and a net worth that would have made 16-year-old Lily's jaw drop. But no matter how many zeros were in my bank account, the scars remained. Every time I passed a mirror, I'd hear Emily's voice, "Charity case." I'd feel that milkshake dripping down my homework, cold and sticky. Those memories didn't fade. They fueled me. They were the reason I worked harder, dreamed bigger, and never gave up. One rainy afternoon, I got an email that stopped me cold. It was from Westfield High, asking for donations to fund a new scholarship program for underprivileged kids pursuing business or tech. My heart raced as I read it, my coffee mug trembling in my hand. This was it, the chance to rewrite my story, to turn their cruelty into something meaningful. I called the principal, Mr. Hargrove, the next day. He didn't remember me at first. Why would he? I was the ghost of Westfield High, the kid who slipped through the cracks. I offered to fund the entire scholarship, $100,000 a year, enough to send one student to college debt-free. But I had one condition: complete anonymity. "Why anonymous?" Mr. Hargrove asked, his voice tinged with curiosity. I paused, my reflection staring back from my office window. "Because this isn't about me," I said. "It's about giving someone the chance I never had." The truth, I wanted to see their faces when they realized who was pulling the strings. I wanted to stand in the shadows and watch the girls who'd made my life hell squirm. The scholarship was called the Rising Innovators Scholarship. I designed it to be brutal. Essays on leadership, creativity, and overcoming adversity, plus a final interview with a panel. The winner would also get a year-long paid mentorship with a major entrepreneur. That entrepreneur was me, but I kept that detail locked tight. Months later, I sat in my sleek Seattle office, the city skyline glittering outside, and opened the list of finalists. My breath caught when I saw their names: Emily Richards, Megan Green. My pulse hammered in my ears. I clicked open Emily's essay, my eyes scanning the screen. It was a masterpiece of buzzwords: empowering underprivileged girls, building a legacy of empathy, women supporting women. I laughed so hard I nearly choked on my iced coffee. Empathy? From the girl who'd laughed while I cried in a bathroom stall? Megan's essay was just as hollow, droning on about resilience and overcoming challenges. Resilience? She'd never faced a challenge she couldn't buy her way out of. I leaned back in my chair, my fingers drumming on the desk, a slow smile spreading across my face. This was going to be better than I'd ever dreamed. I agreed to join the final interview panel via Zoom, camera off, name listed as Ms. C. Harper, my middle name. I wanted to hear their voices, see their faces, and ask the questions that would cut deeper than they expected. I spent the night before preparing, pacing my apartment, rehearsing my tone to sound neutral, professional. But inside, I was buzzing with anticipation. The interviews were unreal. Emily went first. Her blonde hair still perfect, her smile so wide it looked like it hurt. She launched into a rehearsed speech about empowering underprivileged girls to rise above their circumstances. I let her talk, my fingers tapping the desk, my jaw so tight it ached. Then I leaned into the mic. "What makes someone a true leader, Emily?" Her smile wavered just for a second. Treating people equally, I guess." "Interesting," I said, my voice cool. "Even when it's inconvenient. Like when someone's different from you, say less privileged?" Her eyes darted to the side, like she was searching for a lifeline. She mumbled something about teamwork, but her confidence was crumbling, and I could feel it through the screen. Megan was next. She rambled about resilience, her voice dripping with fake sincerity, her hands fidgeting with a pen. I asked, "Have you ever faced real adversity, Megan? Like being judged for who you are, not what you have." She froze, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. "Well, I mean, everyone has struggles, right?" I bit my lip to keep from laughing. "Sure," I said. everyone. When the interviews ended, I turned off my mic and leaned back, staring at my reflection in the dark screen. The girl who used to hide behind library shelves was now holding their futures in her hands. It felt like standing on a mountaintop, the wind rushing through me, every scar suddenly weightless. A week later, Westfield High held an assembly to announce the winner. I flew back to my hometown, my heart pounding as I slipped into the back of the auditorium. The room was packed, students in Letterman jackets, teachers sipping coffee, parents snapping photos. Emily and Megan sat in the front row, whispering, their faces smug. They probably thought they had this locked. Mr. Hargrove stepped up to the podium, his suit slightly wrinkled, his voice booming through the mic. This year's Rising Innovators Scholarship is made possible by a generous anonymous donor, someone who believes in second chances and the power of perseverance. He opened the envelope. The room fell silent, so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat. And the recipient is Lily Carter. Gasps rippled through the crowd. My name, the name they used to mock, filled the auditorium like a thunderclap. I stood up slowly, my heels clicking on the polished floor, my black blazer tailored to fit like armor. Every eye turned to me. Emily's jaw dropped, her face pale as chalk. Megan's hands froze mid-clap, her eyes wide with disbelief. Mr. Hargrove blinked at me, his mouth open. Miss Carter, you're the donor, I said, my voice steady but laced with a quiet power. I stepped onto the stage, my hands steady as I took the microphone. When I was a student here, I began, my voice carrying across the silent room. I felt invisible. I was the scholarship kid, the one who didn't belong. I ate lunch alone, hid from whispers, and dreamed of a day when I'd prove I was more than my circumstances. I paused, letting the words sink in. My eyes found Emily and Megan in the front row, their faces frozen, their smugness gone. I came back not for revenge, I continued, but to show that kindness matters more than popularity, that believing in someone can change their life. The room was so quiet I could hear someone shift in their seat. To those who applied but didn't win, I said, looking directly at Emily and Megan. Don't worry, there will be mentorship opportunities. Some of you will work with me personally. We'll see who earns that chance. A murmur rippled through the crowd. I handed the mic back to Mr. Hargrove, who was still staring at me like I'd grown wings. I walked off stage, my heart pounding with a mix of triumph and relief, the weight of a decade lifting off my shoulders. As I left the building, I overheard Emily's voice, shaky and small. I can't believe she's the Lily Carter. Megan whispered back, how did she... I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. For the first time in years, I smiled, not out of bitterness, but pure, unshakable satisfaction. That moment on stage wasn't about rubbing it in their faces. It was about closing a door on the girl who used to cry herself to sleep, who thought she'd never be enough. I didn't need to tear Emily or Megan down. Their own shock was enough. I'd already won, not by hurting them, but by becoming someone they could never touch. This story isn't just about revenge. It's about what happens when you refuse to let pain define you. It's about taking every insult, every laugh, every moment of feeling small, and turning it into fuel. I created the Rising Innovators Scholarship to give kids like me a chance, to show them that no matter where you start, you can build something extraordinary. So what's the lesson? Karma doesn't always need a push. Sometimes the best way to serve justice is to live a life so big, so undeniable, that those who wronged you can't help but see it. And maybe, just maybe, they'll think twice before underestimating someone again. If this story gave you goosebumps, smash that like button and drop a comment below. What's the most satisfying revenge you've ever seen or experienced? Maybe you've got a story of proving someone wrong. Let's hear it. If you want more real-life stories that make you laugh, cry, or cheer, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.